Hello, I'm Lewis and I make documentaries. So I was in Germany for 1 month recently filming a documentary about my friend Jack. He's got some rare condition called vascular compressions and there's a whole big story about it, but that's what we're making the documentary for. I've made one in the past, which you can see here somewhere. So I was there documenting the process of him getting the surgery to change his life. To put it basically, the condition stopped Jack from living his life in any way. Like, his blood flow was constricted in different areas of his body. So when he would eat food, he would be in pain. When he'd do any sort of exercise, he'd be in pain. It just ruined his life and ruined his rap career. He's been fucked around by the NHS a lot. So we're trying to make this documentary to raise awareness on that and to try and make vascular compressions a more recognised thing. I went to Germany with Jack and Steph, and Jack got the operation, was there with him while he was recovering, and we stayed in Germany in an Airbnb for 2 weeks afterwards. After Jack was discharged from the hospital and we were in the Airbnb, we still went back to the hospital for various things. One thing that I maybe needed for the documentary was actually filming a part of the surgery or getting footage of just a surgery happening. So I asked Professor Sandmann, the main dude, the best professor I've ever been with or chatted to. He's so humble and kind and a beautiful man. So Professor Sandmann said that I could potentially go in and film the surgery. But at the time I didn't really know if I could film the surgery or just go in and set up a camera. I wasn't really sure. I just spoke with Sandmann and I think I might be able to go into the operating room and film stuff. I'm not too sure. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm very nervous about it though, but the sort of feeling of nervousness, like the nervousness I'm about to do something I've never done before. And it's it feels like I shouldn't be doing it, but I know it's that feeling of once you push through it, it's so rewarding. But I got the permission from the patient, so I messaged Christine on Facebook and she let me film her surgery. She agreed to it. Shout out to her. And a pretty mad part was that I'd never ever met Christine in person, apart from when I walked into that operating room and saw her there on the table. That was the first time I ever seen her in person. So I remember meeting her after this, and she said, "Oh, you're the first person who's met me on the inside before the outside." And I was like, great. So yeah, went in with Professor Sandmann and he told everyone that I was there filming and they were fine with that. Within 10 minutes of being in the room, he already started slicing in because everything was prepared. So the surgery was a cut from like about the bottom of the rib cage to below the belly button and completely open. And this was the first time that I'd ever seen anything like blood or guts in my life at all. The only thing I can compare it to that I've seen in person is like cutting myself on the shin from a bike pedal or something. Like never any guts or anything like that. So it was pretty intense. Like you could smell like the burning flesh of the scalpel going through the body. And it kind of smelled like bacon, which was weird. I mean, they're kind of the same thing in a way. But yeah, so the main thing that I was doing I was taking loads of deep breaths because I was like, right, I need to make sure that I'm not gonna pass out or anything. Managed to do okay. It was quite a long surgery. It was just under 3 hours. But at the end, I almost passed out. So I remember just starting to feel like a sense of, I started to feel like slightly like numb. I'm feeling a bit and it was when the doctors were starting to close up Christine and put the intestines back into her body and put the stomach together. So I started to get this overwhelming sense of like numbness and I was like, oh no, it's coming. This is what it's like. And I started to try fight it. I was like taking deep breaths. I was like trying to control my brain. I had to stop filming for a second and like stand there and lean against the side. And I started to feel weaker and weaker and like felt like colour or blood was just draining out of me in a way. I was doing a lot of deep breaths and I was like, I need to sit down or I'm gonna pass out. It just kept like declining. So there was one stool and I went and sat on the stool and I sat there for probably about 30 seconds and was just doing the same thing, deep breaths. I was like, no, I can do this, I can control, like, I'm not gonna pass out. I was like determined not to pass out. And I started to sweat from my forearms, like everywhere in my body at once. Like it wasn't just like, you know, if you run, you get like sweaty pits or whatever. I was like sweating from everywhere at the same time. You'll see in this clip where I was trying to show that my forearms are sweating. I'm like, when do you ever get forearms sweat? It was really hard to even just like turn the camera to my face, to turn the GoPro to my face. Yeah, after that I sort of like sat down for a few seconds, regained a bit of like, I wasn't fully back to normal, but I was like feeling slightly better, and then got up and started to film the rest of the surgery and filmed them closing Christine up and stitching her back together. And I managed to not pass out. I think it was due to the whole surgery being open. It didn't really look like a person, like you couldn't tell that it was, oh, that is a human. But when the body started to close up and you can see the belly button on one side and the hips of Christine, and then I was like, that it started to feel more real. So I think that's why, and also a combination of this was at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something, and I'd only had breakfast at about like 8:30, like 8:30 in the morning, and I didn't drink anything from breakfast, like 8:30 until this, which was near enough 1 p.m. So I think it was just a mix of like, well, the surgery, like not seeing blood and guts before, not being fully prepared, and also being a bit dehydrated and needing some food. Yeah, I managed to film the whole thing, and it was an experience that I'll never ever forget, and I'll be telling people about for years. There was a part of me before I went in that was just saying, don't do this, don't do this. Like there was so much in me that was scared, and I was like, I can't do it. And trying to justify excuses to get out of the situation. Like I could have just said no, but there was like a tiny bit in me that was just saying like, you've got to do this. When are you ever going to get the chance to film a surgery again? Like it could never be. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just go for it, I'll do it. But I think that's an important lesson that I learned that day, that like even if there's a tiny sense of like, oh, I know it's going to be good for me in the future, it's good for me long term, it's going to be interesting, like just go for it. I just had to go for it, even though there's so much in me saying don't do it. I feel like it's a bit comparable to say if you want to go out on a run or go do some exercise, and you're like, half of you is saying, oh, I know it'll be good for me, it's gonna be good for my health, whatever. But there's also loads like, oh, but it's warm inside, I don't really need to go on a run, I went on one yesterday. Like you can make so many excuses for everything, but there's always the reason not to go do something. I think it's really important as humans to like push through that for the benefit of the long term. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and this experience. I don't really do many sit down talk videos, but when there's a good story, I will do that. But otherwise, it will be documenting adventures and fun things that I do. So press a little subscribe button and have one night. Good bonk.